And I just want to preface that I am definitely not the original designer of the butterfly top. It's been around since the 90s. There have been multiple crochet patterns created for the butterfly top by many different designers. I made this just so I could have a pattern out there that's free and accessible for people that has a range of sizes, because all body sizes matter and I want people to be able to make this top for their size. So this pattern includes sizes extra small all the way through 5X. To create this pattern, you are going to need a size F or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook, some scissors, a tape measure so we can make sure that you're making the size that you need to, and then a weight for cotton yarn. The cotton is super important because cotton doesn't stretch. And if you're using acrylic, it's gonna stretch and it doesn't make the best summer crop tops with acrylic. So I highly, highly recommend using cotton. I'm using Lion brand Pima cotton. It's super nice and super soft to work with. I will link it down below. And the yardages that you need for each size, I also link down in the description. So in finding out how to size yourself for this pattern, we're gonna take the width and the height of your chest so we can fit perfectly. I'm not wearing the best bra for this. If you're planning on not wearing a bra with this top, I recommend measuring yourself without the bra. But basically you're gonna wanna go in between and go out and around and measure the width. So mine's about 9, and then the height as well. You don't need to go all the way up, just around like towards the top. So mine's basically like 9 by 8, which I usually fit in a large size. So I'll put the measurements down below, so measure your width and height and figure out what size you need to make. If you're in between sizes, the size you pick depends on the fit. You can pick the small one if you want it a little bit more revealing, or pick the larger one if you want it to be more concealed. It's gonna go farther out this way, and you can always shrink it down and not do as many rows on the sides if you need to. Now that you know the size you want to make a gauge. A gauge is super important for this to make sure that the size that you're planning on making will actually turn out the size that it's supposed to be by measuring the stitches and the rows that your yarn and your hook are making to make sure it matches exactly what mine is. So let's walk through how you make a gauge. So we're gonna create a slip knot and we're going to chain 15 stitches because that is what my 4-inch gauge is. So chain 15. Okay, so we have our 15 stitches. Now we're going to chain 3 for our turning chain. 2, 3. And our turning chain does not count as a stitch throughout this whole pattern. So we're gonna skip 3 chains and double crochet into the 4th stitch. And then you're just gonna double crochet across the entire chain. Okay, so I've double crocheted across my entire chain. I'm gonna chain 3 for my turning chain, turn, and then just double crochet across, starting in that first stitch, all the way across. And you're gonna do this until you have 9 rows of double crochets. Once we're done with our gauge, we're gonna measure it to make sure that it is 4 inches by 4 inches or 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And if it's not, that means that we either need to go up or down a hook size depending on if the gauge is smaller or bigger than it's supposed to be. So if your gauge is larger than 4 inches / 10 centimeters, you're gonna wanna size down your hook, or you can use a different yarn that is a thinner yarn. The opposite, if the gauge is smaller than it needs to be, you can either go up a hook size or use a yarn that's a little bit thicker. Once you get to the end of the row, we are not gonna be going into our chain 3 because it is not considered a stitch. So just go at the end of our double crochet, chain 3, turn. And keep doing that until you have 9 rows. And so if I measure quickly, you can see if I stretch it, it's 4 inches. And so your gauge should end up looking like this, where you have 15 stitches across and 9 rows tall. And when you measure the width and height, it should be 4 inches both ways. Okay, so we're gonna start with the butterfly's body, which is the center of the top. So we're just gonna create a slip knot. These steps are gonna be for every single size, so it doesn't matter what size you are, we all have to do it. So we're gonna chain 4, and I recommend that you make the very first chain a little bit bigger, a little bit loose. 2, 3, 4. And then you're gonna place 4 double crochets in the first chain that we made. Okay, so I have 4 double crochets in that first chain. Then we're gonna chain 3 and turn. So now we're just going to double crochet across those 4, not going into our chain 3 because the chain 3s do not count as a stitch. So going into this one first. And you should have 4 double crochets across. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 3. Then you're going to do that same step again, double crocheting 4 times across. Now we're going to chain 3 and turn. Should look like this. We are going to increase, which means we're just gonna place 2 double crochets in that very first stitch. So 1, 2. Then we're gonna double crochet across until 1 stitch is left. So basically we're gonna do 2 double crochets. And then we're at our 4th double crochet from the last row. We're just gonna place 2 double crochets in that to increase. Now you should have ended with 6 double crochets. We're gonna chain 3, turn, and we're gonna repeat that same step again while increasing, double crochet, increasing, and you should end with 8 stitches. So increase in the first, double crochet until 1 stitch is left, and then increase in the last stitch. And then we're not gonna chain 3 this time, we're just gonna turn. So now we're going to slip stitch in the second stitch. So skipping this first one, going into the second one, just slip stitching. Then we're going to chain 3, double crochet in that same stitch that we slip stitched into. It's like this. And then we're going to double crochet across until 1 stitch is left. Okay, so we are not gonna double crochet in this last stitch. We're leaving it open. So you should now have 6 stitches, not including your chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we are going to chain 3, turn, and just double crochet across. And there is the butterfly body, minus the fact that we do not have the little antennas yet. Now we're gonna do the neck straps. So this is the ties that are gonna be wrapped around your neck. You can adjust the length of these ties however you need to, but we're going to chain 100 and then we're gonna slip stitch down the chain. So I'm going to chain 100 and then meet you there. Okay, so I have 100 chains. Now what we're gonna do is starting in the second chain from your hook, you're going to slip stitch, and then you're just going to slip stitch all the way down this chain until you meet the base of the body. Once you've slip stitched all the way down, we are going to turn it so we're looking this way on the body. We're gonna slip stitch into that first stitch on top, and then we're gonna slip stitch all the way across the top of the body until we get to the other side. Once we're to the other side, we're going to chain 100 and slip stitch down just like we did this side. Once you're done slip stitching all the way across, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna slip stitch to the body where I'm gonna go in right here, slip stitch, and then we're going to take our scissors and fasten off. And we are done with the butterfly body. And it should look like this. Now we're going to be working on the butterfly wing. So first we're gonna do our foundation setup to start the butterfly wings. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our yarn, create a slip knot, and we're gonna attach our yarn to the 5th row where we slip stitched or skipped that stitch on that row. We're gonna insert our hook there. And we're gonna put our slip knot on the hook, tighten it, and pull it through. And now we are attached. Now we're going to chain 5, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to double crochet in that same spot we attached our yarn. Then we're gonna chain 5 again. And then we're gonna double crochet between rows 4 and 5. So this is row 5 and this is row 4. So we're gonna go right here and double crochet. So it should look like this. Then we're gonna chain 2 and double crochet in that same space that we just double crocheted. Then we're going to chain 3. And then we're gonna double crochet between rows 3 and 4. So this was 5, this was 4, this is 3. So we're gonna go double crochet right here. And then we're gonna chain 2 and double crochet in that same space. And that is what your setup of your wing should look like. Now we are going to chain 3 and we're gonna turn. So we're still setting up our butterfly wings. So we are going to place 4 double crochets in this space right here, this chain space, right there. And we're gonna place 4. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're gonna place 3 double crochets in the next chain space, which is this guy here. And then do that once again into the next chain space. Double crochet 3 times, 3, and then chain 1. And then we're going to place 5 double crochets in this bigger space here. Then we're gonna chain 1, and then we'll place 3 double crochets in this space. And then we're gonna place 1 more double crochet on the top of the chain 3 here. So we're gonna find where our chains are, 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna go into the top of that chain 3 and put a double crochet. That way it just flattens out this side, it makes it look nice. And there is our second row of the setup. And you should have ended with 19 double crochets. So 4, 4, 3, 3, and 5. Turn. And then we're gonna slip stitch into the second stitch. So slip stitch. Then we're gonna slip stitch into the third stitch. And then we're gonna chain 3. And then we're gonna increase, and we're gonna increase in that spot that we're slip stitched into. And this chain 3 does not count as a double crochet, so we're gonna put 2 double crochets in the first stitch, and then 2 double crochets in the next stitch. And so you should have 4 double crochets there, not including the chain 3. Then we're gonna chain 2, skip this space here, and we're going to increase in the next 5 double crochets. So we're gonna put 2 double crochets in the next 5 stitches. So you should end that section with now 10 double crochets. Then we're gonna chain 2, and we're gonna skip the chain space, and we're gonna place 3 double crochets in the middle double crochet. So we're gonna skip this one and place 3 into this middle double crochet in this section. Skip the chain space again, and then we're going to increase in the next 3 stitches. So we will end with 6, chain 2, and then we'll increase 2 times. 2 double crochets in here, and then 2 double crochets here. And you should end with 4 there. And there is our next row. And you should end with 27 double crochets this row. Turn our work. We are going to repeat the same thing we did at the beginning of the last row. So we're gonna slip stitch into the second stitch, and then slip stitch into the third stitch, chain 3, and then increase 2 times. This is basically gonna be done at the beginning of each row and the end of each row to set up our border of our wings. Now we're gonna chain 2, skip our chain space, and then we're gonna repeat an increase in the first stitch and then just 1 double crochet in the next stitch. So place 2 double crochets, then 1 double crochet across this section, where we're gonna end with 9 double crochets in this section. Okay, chain 2. Now we're going to place 3 double crochets in that middle section once again. Then we're gonna chain 2. And then we're going to increase just 1 double crochet, increase just 1 double crochet across this section, where you're gonna end with 15. So 2 double crochets in 1 stitch, then 1 double crochet all the way across this section. Okay, now we'll chain 2 and then increase 2 times. So increase in the first and then increase in the second, and that's our row. And you should end with 35 double crochets this time. If you are doing size extra small, you're gonna skip this next step. I am going to do size medium for this tutorial. So up until now, every single size will do this, but now is when we're going to start going with specific sizes. So I'm going to be doing size medium. I'll put the row counts and everything down below that each size needs to do. But once again, if you're doing extra small, you will skip this step. So you're gonna turn, you're gonna slip stitch into the second, slip stitch into the third, chain 3, and then increase 2 times, like we did in the previous rounds. Then we'll chain 2. Then you're gonna increase in the first stitch. So place 2 double crochets in the first. Then you're going to double crochet across the entire row until 1 stitch is left, and you'll increase into that stitch. Okay, then we're gonna chain 2. We're going to place 3 double crochets in that middle stitch, like so. And then we're gonna chain 2. And then we're going to do the same that we did in this by increasing at the front, double crocheting across, and then increasing at the end. So place 2 in this stitch, and then 1 in all the others except for the very last one. Okay, and we're gonna chain 2 and then increase 2 times. Okay, so this is our next row. For this section, what we're gonna do is, depending on the size that you're making, you're gonna repeat that same exact row for a certain amount of times up until a specific row. So for medium, I'm gonna do 1 more row of this. For small and medium, you do 1 more row up until row 6. So this was row 5. Large and extra large is 8, 2x is 10, 3x is 12, and 4x is 12, and 5x is 14. So you'll find all the specific row information on the screen. So I'm gonna repeat that row 1 more time for the size medium. Now we're at the point where the rows and stitches for each size is gonna start differing. So if you wanna double check the rows and stitches that you have, I recommend going to look at the written pattern for this, which can be found linked in the description. So now we're moving on to the next row where we're going to only work on the upper wing. So that means we're gonna split this between the upper wing and the lower wing. So how we're gonna do that is we're gonna start like we usually do. We're gonna slip stitch in the second and third stitch, chain 3, and then increase in the first 2 stitches. Then we're gonna chain 2. And then we're going to increase in the first and then double crochet until 1 stitch is left and increase in that stitch, just like we did before. So 2 in the first and 2 in the last of this section. Okay, now we're gonna chain 2. Now we're gonna be working on splitting the bottom from the top. So we're going to place 3 double crochets, but not in the middle one this time. We're gonna go into the first one. So place 3 double crochets in the first stitch of that section. And then we're gonna leave all the rest of the stitches left and turn our work. And now we're gonna be working on just the upper wing. Okay, so we turn our work. We're going to slip stitch in the second stitch. And then we're going to chain 3. And then increase 2 times. So it's basically like we did at the beginning of the other row, but this time, since we only have 3 stitches at the base here, we're only slip stitching 1 time. So we're gonna increase 2 times, chain 2, and then skip this chain space. We're going to increase at the beginning here, and then double crochet until 1 stitch is left, and then increase at the end, just like we did the past couple rows. So placing an increase at the very end of the section, chain 2, and then ending like normal by having 2 increases at the end. And there you go. So now we're only gonna be increasing 1 time in this section and not 2 like we have for the past couple rows. That way we start increasing this way, but this side doesn't also start increasing. It'll start curving in a little bit. So the next 2 rows that we do are going to be alternating a couple times, and the amount of rows that you need to do until you're done alternating can be found here. So these are the 2 rows that will be alternating. So you're going to slip stitch in the second stitch, slip stitch in the third, and then do the classic beginning of chain 3 and then increase 2 times. Then we're gonna chain 2, and then we're going to increase in the first stitch and then double crochet all the way across this section. So we're not doing an increase at the end. So the last stitch we are not going to increase and just put 1 double crochet, chain 2, and then 2 increases at the end. Okay, and now that's the first row of the repeat. So the second row is basically the same thing, but we're not gonna increase here, we're gonna increase here at the end. So we're going to start with the same thing, so slip stitch 2 times, chain 3, increase 2 times, then we'll chain 2, and then double crochet all the way until there's 1 stitch left. When there's 1 stitch left, then we're going to increase, chain 2, and then 2 increases. And that is the 2 repeats. So you are going to repeat those 2 rows until you have a total of this many stitches and you reach this row. So for medium, I'm gonna go until row 13 and I have a total of 36 double crochets across, repeating those 2 rows. Okay, so for size medium, I just completed row 13, so now we're gonna move on to the next row after doing our alternating rows. So what we're gonna do is we're going to slip stitch 3 times, starting in the second stitch. So we're gonna slip stitch 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to slip stitch into the chain space. And then we're gonna slip stitch 2 more times. So 1, 2. Now we're going to chain 3, and we're gonna double crochet until 1 stitch is left. We're going to do our first double crochet in the space where our chain 3 is. And then we're going to double crochet across. Once you get to the end of this section and there's 1 stitch left, we're going to increase. Then we're gonna chain 2, and we're gonna increase 2 times. And there you go. So we should have notched in on this side here, because this is where the wing is gonna start going up this way for the side of the wing. So now our next step, we are going to be alternating again these next 2 rows. So the first row that we're gonna be alternating, we're gonna turn, slip stitch in the second, slip stitch in the third, chain 3, do our 2 increased double crochets as normal. Then we're gonna chain 2. We're going to increase in the first stitch. Then we're going to double crochet all the way across until 5 stitches remain, not including our chain 3. So basically 5 double crochets at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll stop in this space here. Okay, so I have 1 more double crochet until I have 5 stitches left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm gonna stop, and we're gonna leave these untouched, and we're just gonna turn our work. So that is the first row that we're gonna be alternating. So now the next row, the second row, we're gonna slip stitch in the next 5 stitches, starting in the second stitch. So we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we're gonna chain 3, and then we're gonna double crochet across until 1 stitch is left, where we're gonna increase in that last stitch. And we're gonna do our first double crochet in the space that our chain 3 is coming from, and then just double crochet across. Okay, once you get to the end, we're gonna increase in that last stitch. Then we're gonna chain 2 and put 2 increases at the end like normal. And that's the second alternating row. So we're basically creating these little notches with each row we do. So we're gonna keep alternating between these last 2 rows until you have a total of this many rows. Okay, now I'm done with those repeats. So for size medium, I just finished row 18. So now I turn. Now I'm going to slip stitch in the second stitch, slip stitch in the third stitch, chain 3, and then we're just gonna double crochet, increase 2 times. And that is the next row. So this is kind of what you should be seeing. Here's our upper wing. So to finish this off, what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn. We're going to slip stitch across 3 times, starting in the second stitch. So 1, 2, 3. Then we also want to slip stitch on the top of the chain 3, just so we make sure we are fully on the edge, like that. Then we're going to make our chain, which is going to be used to cross in the back to secure our top to ourselves. So the amount of chains that we're going to chain depends on the size you're doing. So here are the different chain amounts. We're gonna chain that amount, and then just like we did for this, we're gonna slip stitch down the chain starting in the second chain from the hook. Then we're gonna slip stitch back to the body and fasten off. So I'm gonna do so and chain all my 200 chains for this. Once you've slip stitched down the really long chain, we are going to then slip stitch to the body. I'm just gonna go into the top of the chain 3 like I did earlier, and then we're just gonna fasten off. And the upper wing is complete. So now we are going to work on the lower wing. So we're gonna take our yarn, create a slip knot, and we are going to attach the yarn to the outer double crochet of this middle chain 3. So we're gonna attach it right here. So insert our hook on the outer side of this cluster of 3 double crochets. Put it right here and pull our slip knot through. Now we're gonna chain 3 and we're gonna place 3 double crochets in the same space. So 3. Then we're gonna chain 2. Then we're just gonna double crochet across, putting 1 in every single stitch of this section. Then we're gonna chain 2 and place 2 increases at the end. Okay, so now we've started to work on the lower wing. So we're gonna turn our work. We're gonna start out like normal, slip stitch 2 times, chain 3, and then place 2 double crochet increases. Okay, then we're gonna chain 2. Then we are going to skip the very first stitch of this section, and we're gonna double crochet in the next stitch. So we skipped the chain space and the first stitch. We're gonna double crochet across until we have 1 stitch left in this section. Okay, so we have 1 more double crochet left of this section, but we're not gonna go into it. We're gonna skip it, chain 2, and double crochet increase in the first stitch, and then double crochet increase in the next stitch as well. And there we go. So we have increased this middle section here by 2 stitches. Now we're gonna turn, and we're gonna repeat that same exact row until we have a total of this many rows in our lower wing. So for me, with medium, that was just my row 8. So I need to do this until I hit row 13. Okay, now every size should look like this, where we have 1 double crochet left in the middle and the border on the 2 sides. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn, we're going to slip stitch in the 2nd and 3rd. We're gonna chain 3. Then we're gonna increase 2 times. Then we're gonna chain 1. You're gonna skip this middle section and go right over to this side and put 2 double crochet increases. Okay, now we're gonna turn. We're going to slip stitch 3 times, starting in the 2nd stitch. We're gonna chain 3, and this chain 3 does happen to be included in as a double crochet. So we're just gonna double crochet in the same stitch. Then we're going to chain 1. We're gonna skip the space, and we're gonna do an increase in the first stitch. And there we go. So now we can just fasten off. And we are done with the one side of our butterfly top, minus the fact that we need to weave in all our ends. So here's what the size medium looks like. Yours may look different depending on the size that you did. Now we are just gonna repeat the steps of joining to the side of the butterfly body and working the wings. And it's the same exact thing, just on the other side. So we're going to attach our yarn to the same exact place, but just on the other side. So with the wings sitting like this, we're going to attach our yarn to that skip stitch right there on the body and work this way, just like we did when we attached on this side and worked this way. So you'll attach here and start the wings all over again. So now let's go over how you wear the top. So I am pulling out my large that I made that fits me. Let's go over the basic way to wear it first. So first we're gonna take the 2 ties that are on the body, and this is gonna be tied around your neck like a halter. When you tie around your neck, make sure that the body of the butterfly is towards the middle of your chest. That way the wings fit where they need to be, and you can adjust accordingly. Then we're gonna put the wings on, where we're gonna take the super long cord and put it over your shoulder on both sides. And then you're gonna take the cord from the one side and we're gonna loop it through the very edge of the top upper wing from the other side. Loop it through. Do the same thing with the other side. Get the long cord, loop it through the big wing. That's good to go. Now we're gonna do the same thing by taking the other side's cord and loop it around the bottom edge of the lower wing. And then do the same thing on the other side. And then you pull it tight and we will tie it together back here. And so this is the basic way to wear it, and you can pull and tighten on the upper wings and the lower wings to make it fit better and how you want it to. So I am wearing a large and you can see the lower wings are kind of being hidden a little bit. So another thing you can do, I'm gonna take out the bottom wings. Instead of attaching it to the bottom, you can attach it to the middle. That way you're not pulling from the edge so you can see a little bit more of the wing. And then I'll tie it this way. That way you can see the lower wings a bit more so it looks more like a butterfly and it's not being wrapped around your waist. And there you go. So another thing you can do if you are a big chest girly like myself, instead of tying this around your neck, what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna crisscross it in the front here so it pulls this in more and covers up a little bit. So we can weave it through like this in any way that you like. I'm doing it just super quickly here and not seeing if it's symmetrical, so don't look super closely. And you can tie this like this. See this a lot better if I was not wearing an undershirt. So there are so many different ways you can tie this. Find the one that you find is the most comfortable and makes you comfortable in the top. I hope you liked this tutorial. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, and I would love it if you subscribe to my channel and comment down below if you made the top or with any questions, and you can also tag me at May Crochets on Instagram and hashtag May's Butterfly Top. Thank you so much for watching.